Welcome to Culture Vultures. I'm Sandy Frye, your host. Our creative producer is Nancy Cole, and this is a show that examines culture and the arts around Tampa Bay. And the subject today is travel, but not just travel. You know, Americans are just crazy for travel, and as the more they travel, the more they like to have sort of particular kinds of travel. There's travel for hikers, there's travel for bikers, there are travel for museums, and to various mountains that you could climb or maybe fall off of. But travel is a consuming American activity. And we have a travel that is unique. And we have two marvelous guests to talk about it. I'd like to introduce first the executive director of the Straz Performing Arts Center, Judith Lisi, who came and saved the center and has ever since been a creative and dynamic force for the center and has literally vitalized downtown Tampa. And Jack Ross, the executive director of the Jewish Community Center in Tampa. Now, both of them are engaged in a mission to Israel. It's not just see the sights of Israel. It is a mission that takes us to various sites where there are actually arts being performed. There are artists who will engage you in conversation and talk about the history and talk about the future too, I'm sure. And it will also lay out for the visitors the various dimensions of Israel which may not be apparent to everyone. Now, Jack, I understand you have grown up in Israel.
Well, no, actually, I emigrated to Israel in 1989 and spent several years there living there. I was already grown up, but Israel is, and has been for the last 22 years, a very significant part of my life. I'm a pro-Israel advocate for the U.S.-Israel relationship and our common allies. Israeli culture is important to me. It's intertwined with Jewish culture, although not all Israelis are Jewish. There's 6 million Israelis today who are Jewish and 1 million of other ethnicities and religious backgrounds. And I love Israel. And so I enjoy at every opportunity sharing that love. And as you so aptly mentioned, that there are many facets of Israel that are unknown to people, many dimensions to Israel. Often we hear only of conflict between Israel and her neighbors, conflict brought upon Israel and the necessities of self-defense that come with it. But here we have an opportunity, and the Tampa Jewish Community Center and Federation, the organization of which I'm a part of, has elected to each year take a trip to Israel with a different theme. Thematic trips to Israel, the first of which was last year, led by the honorary chair, Tampa Mayor Bob Buckhorn. And there the theme was innovation, high-tech developments that have come out of Israel. Many don't know, but the cell phone was invented in Israel. The Pentium chip was invented in Israel. Drip irrigation was invented in Israel. This from a country just 64 years old, and I can go on. But this year, and that trip was so successful, we had both Jews and non-Jews and business persons and people from the municipality that we have continued the process. And this year we are visiting Israel and discovering Israel through the performing arts.
I should say, for a little country, 8,000 square miles, you said?
Approximately 8,000 square miles.
Fits into New Jersey maybe 11 times?
No, it fits into Florida at least 11 times. It is about the size of New Jersey.
I'm from New Jersey. If it fits into New Jersey, it can fit in
it's about the same size as New Jersey.
Well, I think that's very interesting because it's a mighty might. It really is. It's the second trip. And Judy, you've never been to Israel. You are the honorary chair of this.
Yes, I was really honored to be asked by the Federation to be considered sort of the titular head, because I haven't been to Israel. And when they asked me, I actually called Bob Buckhorn and said, gee, Bob, I've been asked and I'm thinking about it. I understand you were there. And he said he was bowled over by the whole trip and what he learned. And you know, part of what I do and part of my responsibility is to really learn about the performing arts all over the world. I'm actually on the board of an international arts group, and one year we were supposed to go to Israel, and there was some flare-up and the trip was canceled. So when I received this opportunity, and I just said, I really must do this. This is important for me as an arts professional, but it's important in my capacity to really learn what is happening, because there could be something there that at one point I might be able to bring here to Tampa, sure, so that our audiences also can learn about this.
Right. Well, the Israel Philharmonic is very famous, and it travels. And I think there's the dance troupe. Was it the Bat
Sheva? They tour, yeah. And what they're doing in dance is really sometimes state of the art. But they really were a magnet. They wanted people in dance to come there, and that's why what they're doing in dance now is so interesting.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, the second is really a sort of a union of Pinellas, Orlando, and Tampa federations. And so you'll have draw people from the three, and Orlando, you may even have some producers as well, since it's a great entertainment site. Did you construct the itinerary?
I wish I could take credit. We are working with a wonderful office in Jerusalem that's part of the Jewish Federation system nationally. And the interesting note here, that a woman by the name of Andy Katz has been putting together itineraries for Jewish communities for about 19 years. And she has never, and these are her words, that she has never had the opportunity to put together such a rich and off-menu itinerary as that which she has prepared for this trip. You know, when Jewish communities go to Israel, there are some of the staple areas, and there's a lot of focus on understanding the country and the conflict with its neighbors and where it's headed, and Jewish continuity and other aspects. But here we have brought, quite uniquely, I think, a dimension to experiencing Israel that not only opens up the door for someone who's been planning these missions as long as Ms. Katz has, but adds effectively a whole different way of coming to a country, whether it be Israel or Greece or to Canada. If you begin to compartmentalize countries and aspects of those countries, like in the arts, they're whole new trips. So if you've been to England any number of times, but have never gone specifically on an itinerary that focuses on the arts, imagine the richness even for an Anglophile.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is a wonderful opportunity. I think that it's a model that will be replicated around the country. And as you've mentioned, we are now a federation, an alliance of federations between Tampa Jewish community, the Orlando Jewish community, and the Pinellas Jewish community, making this the first federation alliance mission of its kind, also the first of its kind regarding specificity of subject. Yeah. And so exciting at every level.
It was interesting that my first impression was it's landing in a suburb. It lands in Tel Aviv, and that's where Ben Gurion Airport is. I just thought everyone just went right into Jerusalem, but probably Jerusalem isn't that big as opposed to Tel Aviv. And the next surprise was that there are wineries throughout. The one that you are going to visit on the first day is
Binyamina. That's right. Yeah. First of all,
I was happy to see that myself.
The wine industry just over a decade ago in Israel has really blossomed onto the international stage, and there are many labels now that have been recipients of international prizes. So in addition to having developed the cell phone and some of the other things that I've mentioned, really, and the list goes on, you would just be blown away that in 64 years of its modern incarnation that so many great things have happened. Wine is now a product of Israel that is held in international regard. Beer now is also coming into its own. But we have elected to come off of a 10-hour flight,
Yeah.
which will be long and arduous,
You bet.
and to head right to a winery. I thought that was appropriate.
Right. Forget about unpacking.
I don't know, with jet lag and a little wine.
Right.
You'll sleep well.
Right. And let's talk about the second, what I think is the second unique aspect of this, and that is the sound sculpture by Fred Johnson. And Judy, you probably can explain it better than anyone.
We have really been blessed with a wonderful artist named Fred Johnson, who actually worked at the Strass Center for many years and is largely responsible for our arts education programs growing the way they have. But Fred is an amazing artist, and one of the things Fred does, which is quite unique, and only Fred could do that, is capture a moment with a group of people. And when we were starting to talk about this trip, we had done a similar mission to Cuba a number of years ago. And Fred came with us as an artist. And what he would do is maybe one day or every 3 days, take a moment to capture the experiences that we all had into this, what he calls a sound sculpture, using his voice and taking expressions of the people that are in the audience, or what impacted them. And it really, it's hard to explain. You have to have had been through one of them. But he will come with us and do this every once in a while for our group. The interesting thing about Fred is he has worked with many artists in Israel over the last number of years. So he is very familiar with the art scene, especially the generic performing arts that are actually happening there right now. So it'll be very helpful to have him in that capacity as well.
With the advent of the cell phone, which has become the smartphone, you can take a lot of visuals that, joined with a sound sculpture, might be a fully enhanced
well, for an example, and I don't even know if you know this, but my sister is a specialist in arts and healing. And she is going there to document this experience. And she's going to meet with the people that she works with when she comes back. And she's going to be sending things to them throughout the whole tour regarding what she's finding and the healing aspects of it, and sending it back. So there's many, I think, aspects to this this prism of Israel.
Yeah, that's the beauty of the arts, and that is so many facets, and it elicits so many responses. Some of them might be very traumatic for someone, but someone else might be saved by them, or may find a new way of looking at things, which makes all the difference. For a modern community, Israel still, though, incorporates an awful lot of traditional and historic sites and cultures. And you're going to treat some of them, aren't you?
Yeah, one of the unique aspects of this trip is how it will incorporate modernity with its rich history. Also with a political dynamic in terms of there are real events unfolding in the region, even as we sit here recording today, and we'll be able to put all of these things into context: history, modernity, regional geostrategic events, and how they come together in a place like Israel. I just going back to Binyamina for a second, it's not that we're just going to a winery for winery's sake. We're going to have 2 performances there. We're going to have an Ethiopian choir that is Jews from Ethiopia who made Aliyah, who left Ethiopia, who have now made Israel their home. And there's a children's choir who will sing and present songs of their background and of Israel. And just in the context of the Ethiopian choir, you have a sense of modernity and history. The Ethiopian Jews, thousands of years ago, having left the area of ancient Israel and gone into Africa and Egypt and Morocco and Algeria and Tunisia, the North African Rim today, and that other Jews went further into the African continent, and they're coming home. the collection of so many Jews from around the world, of which the Ethiopian community is one. So we'll be seeing at each of our venues not only a performance, but this interplay or this nexus with modernity and history and geostrategic components all coming together.
I understand Israel has just slightly less than half of the world, all the world's Jewish population. So that must include many, many countries represented.
That's right. I served in an army unit, for instance, made up of immigrants. And in our unit alone, just a small number of people, we had from Iran, we had from Ireland, we had from Canada, we had from the United States, of course, we had from Ethiopia, we had from Russia, we had from Ukraine, many of the former Soviet Union countries, the Kazakhstani, I think. So that's right. Very much like the United States, Israel has ingathered people from all over the world who are Jews. Yeah.
Well, I think the man who owns the Bimiana winery
from Hungary.
Was from Hungary.
That's right.
Yeah, which is a very nice and fertile place to have wine and grape too. Well, after that, are you going by the way, are you going by bus, or are you going by, because this is a small enough country, and at one point you have simply the cultural mosaic of Galilee, and Galilee is a familiar name to so many Americans, but what can you discover there?
Right. Well, the Galilee is a community in the north of Israel. It's the hills of the Galilee. And there's the Upper Galilee, which is where we will visit a place called Tel Chai, which is a memorial to the pioneers of the early 20th century, Jews who came from Eastern Europe and settled in, at that time, the Ottoman Empire, but really just post-Ottoman and during the Ottoman Empire up through 1918. And they created a group of people called Hashomer, the guards. And the idea, along with the Zionist principle of returning to the biblical land of Israel and creating a modern Jewish homeland, was that Jews also protect themselves, which was a new concept coming from the Eastern European communities where pogroms were so part of their daily life. And Jewish self-defense was not a part of the lexicon. And so we will be in the Upper Galilee, where we will visit a monument to these early pioneers. There are Druze villages. The Druze, a sect of Islam, of a community that lives within Israel. They participate in Israeli politics and Israeli administration and serve in the Israeli army. And their communities are a part of the Galilee. Christian Arab communities and Muslim Arab communities along and next to Jewish communities. And so it's a biblical and mystical range of upper and lower mountains or hills, more like hills than mountains, that we will be visiting and again experiencing performances and cultural presentations of food and from Tzfat, the ancient city of Tzfat, to the Circassian or Circassian village, which we can talk about. Just an amazing and eclectic and rich itinerary.
Tzfat, where the Kabbalah is practiced.
That's
correct?
right. The 16th century center of Kabbalah Judaism, mystical Judaism. We'll be visiting Tzfat and listening to the liturgy of mystical Jewish song and music, and dwelling among the artisan alcoves and studios that make up Tzfat today.
That's very interesting, because I think either before or just before or maybe right after, you have a theater artist who's has a play that, and it's sort of like I'm Still Here, isn't it?
Yes.
And that is very modern. I mean, it could be on Broadway. It probably will be on Broadway, because there's something about Jewish men telling jokes, which is now on Broadway.
Which we do, by
very
the
well.
way.
We do. We're bringing that here, by the way.
Oh, good.
If I could put in a little plug.
Right. Of course. Now, have they done this before for any audiences that are not your normal regulation audiences?
Yeah, I'm sure. The one-man performance that you're speaking about has been produced and presented on many occasions. I don't know to whom and on what occasions, but This is certainly an established presentation, but again, it goes back to this intersection between modernity and history, because the gentleman who presents it is from North America. He made Aliyah. He emigrated to Israel. He was realizing the reestablishment and the furthering of the modern Jewish state. And in doing so, he himself clashes culturally and otherwise with a culture and a people from many different areas, as we've talked about, and a life that's difficult in a difficult neighborhood, and yet he stays. And so I imagine we're going to hear about this clash of culture and clash of time and clash of place. And in the end, this is why it's so sweet, as difficult as it may be.
Right. You can insult everybody and they love it, or they don't. But usually they do. And I think that's part of humor too, is doing that. Well, what are the other highlights that you'd like to talk about?
Well, I mentioned in passing the Circassian or Circassian village that we're going to visit in an area in the north again, in the Upper Galilee, or the Lower Galilee, I believe, of Rachania. And this is a group of people that number about 1,200. In the 17th century, they lived in the area of Russia today and converted from Christianity to Islam. They're essentially an Eastern European ethnicity, but with Christian roots, but converted to Islam. And after some conflict in their home area, were banished or moved, depending who you read and speak to what was then the Ottoman Empire in the area of what is today modern Israel. And they maintain their community, they maintain their culture, they maintain their foods and their dances and their music. And we're going to visit this very unique village, and we are going to experience their food, and we're going to hear their traditions and through song and through dance. And I think it's going to just be amazing because here we will essentially be looking at almost sort of a Cossack presentation of Eastern European ethnicity coupled with Islam, with a Muslim variance, all brought together in something that has emerged post-Ottoman Empire period into something
in Israel.
In Israel.
In Israel,
That,
right.
and I think that that's going to be one of the highlights, I suspect.
I'm sure. You have the heights of Galilee. Are the heights of Galilee anywhere near the Golan Heights?
Yes, the Galilee Mountains run through the Hula Valley and then to the Sea of Galilee, Lake Kinneret. But you may know from the Old Testament, the Sea of Galilee. It's the largest sweetwater reserve of fresh water that Israel has available to her, and its shores on the northeastern and eastern side of the shores run up against the Golan Heights.
Okay.
And the Golan Heights, so everything is close to everything in Israel.
I was wondering about the elevation because your highest point is also coupled with the lowest point on Earth in the Dead Sea, which is, again, a contrast, study in contrast.
That's right.
Really interesting mixtures, geographic, cultural.
That's right. Microclimates.
Microclimates as well. That's right. By the way, in agriculture, is there anything that Israel is really fond of producing? I think probably oranges, blood oranges, are they?
I'll tell you, the list would be too long. I will tell you that agrotechnologies is something that the entire world now looks toward Israel. Also biotechnologies, but something that we may know in our everyday life, drip irrigation here in Florida. And you see the hoses running through our gardens. Drip irrigation was developed in Israel. All kinds of genetic changes and hybrids and the ability to make vegetation and growing more resilient in areas of the world that suffer from desertification. Israel has contributed in these areas, and so one of the outcomes is we have this rich, potpourri of fruits and vegetables, and the Golan Heights that you mentioned is a volcanic area, and so that's where some of our finest wines and champagnes come from.
Well, I bet, because it's the soil that counts, really.
Right.
Well, the center, the cultural heart of Israel, would you call it Jerusalem, where the major museum is and the Philharmonic?
Oh, that's a loaded question, because a Jerusalemite would say yes, and a person from Tel Aviv would say, oh no. We have the Tel Aviv Center for the Performing Arts, and we have the Arab-Israeli Performing Arts in Jaffa, and we have the ballet company in Bat Sheva that we made reference to. They're both cultural powerhouses.
Give no ground to any of them.
I can't.
Each other.
I have to keep going back. So.
From an observer's perspective, it would seem that Jerusalem might represent perhaps the more historic and culturally significant in terms of even people beyond Jews, I would think. Being a Christian, every time you say Galilee or one, I'm so excited, about having an opportunity to get close to those things. So, but that's just from an observer,
I understand that you have trip number 3 in mind, and it's again a totally different theme.
It is. This is not concrete by any means, but we are in discussions for 2014 to develop a very significant sports trip, thematically centered on experiencing Israel through sports. And we would hope in such a trip that we would visit with all of the major basketball and soccer leagues, and perhaps with the owners of those teams. And there are significant sport institutions in Israel, and so that's in the works, and we'll make that known.
Is there a national sport? Is it soccer?
The national sport is sunflower seed eating. I'll tell you, yes, and it's connected to soccer, which is known as football. And so, yes, the passion in Israel is regarding football, as we know it to be soccer, and with that, this sunflower seed eating. But basketball is at a national level, and soccer, along with the rest of the world, is great passion.
Well, it sounds like great fun and a real cultural experience.
You should come with us.
I should.
You're invited.
Thank you for being with us.
What if a disaster strikes without warning? What if life as you know it has completely turned on its head? What if everything familiar becomes anything but? Before a disaster turns your family's world upside down, it's up to you to be ready. Get a kit, make a plan, be informed today. Learn how at ready.gov.